Back in the 40s, Australia or Australians didn't know what a migrant was. I was even frightened to tell my relatives and friends where I worked.
The brief was to select people from the Baltic states only. But I was very conscious of the fact that Australians had generally a negative attitude to non-English speaking migrants. In fact, they didn't know very much about them at all. The few that were here before the war were either called Dagos or refs, and not in a very friendly way.
Newspapers all over the nation levelled violent criticism at the low standard of living to which these new Australians were accustomed. Simple, everyday commodities were foreign to them, and most of the press echoed the warning that the high standard of Australian living was endangered by importing immigrants indiscriminately. Let us hope that immigration of the future will be planned deliberately and intelligently and offer more opportunities to the people of our own stock.
You are very welcome as new Australians in our Australian community. We want to see more of your type coming to these shores to help to build up the homes that Australians want and that you yourselves will want too later on. We trust that you will settle down in Australia, marrying Australian girls or girls from the old country. We want hundreds of thousands of men like you, and we want many, many thousands of young women too, who will come with you to join their fate and your fate with our destiny in this land so far from Europe, but so important a part of the British Commonwealth of Nations.
So what they want is trying to encourage the British to come out here because, well, it's our country really, isn't it? We're not really migrants, but it was 10 quid it was in them days, that's all it cost you.
You too can go to Australia for £10.
10 quid all the way from London to Sydney. I mean, it's good value, really. I mean, it costs you more than that to go down to Bournemouth for the day.
The Commonwealth government is determined that its migration plan shall succeed. If we are to survive as a nation, it must succeed.
But Arthur Calwell had set a massive target, 20 million in our time. And very soon he realised that he was not going to get them from Britain alone.
Early in 1947, he signed an agreement with the International Refugee Organisation to take initially 10,000 displaced persons from camps that were all over Western Germany.
Today in war-torn Europe, homeless people are still restless and on the move. These are the innocent victims of war, the displaced persons. These were the farmers, the artisans, the students, and the labourers of the small states of Europe. What lies ahead of them? People without a country, people without a home, people awaiting a chance to live again, to build afresh their shattered lives in a new country.
In essence, the early criteria was to select able-bodied people to go to employment directed by the Australian government.
They were privileged to come to Australia and we'd select them. And so we selected them with different criteria, that is, those who had the greatest skill or who looked the best, and those that didn't have terrible burdens to carry, like crippled children or aged parents and those sort of things. We really were applying compassionate standards with a heavy hand.
John, you're the head of the family. You must decide. You'll have to leave Andreas behind, but the rest of you can emigrate as a family group. What are you going to do about it?
It was stupid at the time, because what the government said, we will make you Australians within about 5 years. Bulldust. It just doesn't happen that way. But nobody had any idea about anything else. They decided we're going to be Australians. If they decided, that must be it.
They have come from many countries in Europe and speak several different languages. Men, women and children, to a new adventure in this big, strange land so far from their own. This is Bonegilla, a migrant reception centre in Victoria, Australia, where they will stay for a while until jobs and more permanent accommodation can be found for them. They have travelled many thousands of miles to get here, over the sea in a ship. They look tired and a little bewildered at first, but officers of the centre have prepared for their coming. They welcome them, talk to them, help them to find their baggage, and show them to their quarters. Every section of the centre has its own kitchen and dining rooms. Here the cooks have been preparing lunch for the many hundreds to be fed in this one. Afterwards, the staff will clear away and begin preparations for the evening meal.
Naturally, the authorities were clumsy. They had no idea what to do with people who were came from another culture, who spoke other languages than English, who had totally different expectations what the Australians thought they would have. They were incredibly clumsy. I mean, one example was that they labeled everyone a labourer in the books when they arrived, in their identity card, which was totally unnecessary and humiliated people and antagonized people from the beginning.
One of my impressions always was this peculiar smell that came from a group of people, and it's I put it down to the fact it was fear, because these orders to line them up and do this and that was given in German, because that's the language they were used to in their camps before they came to Australia. And I think it was an automatic reaction that somebody's shouting at them in German, get into line and, you know, sit down and sign this and go out the other door, that sort of thing. Probably got to them a bit, and it took them several weeks or months before this disappeared. And we commented on it at the time that the fear smell seemed to have gone. I remember this back in probably late 49 or 50.
They were the flotsam and jetsam of Europe, as one might say. Stateless, many of them. All they had in the world they carried in a suitcase. And they brought with them great suspicions. They couldn't believe that anyone wanted to do something for them without something in return. We gave them a sumptuous afternoon tea, and we felt we'd broken the ice. And after that we had dances, we had various social functions, and then of course a group of us who formed the nucleus of the Good Neighbour Council used to go to the hostels and welcome every new group, offering them our services to find out the answers to many problems they had.
It was like a jungle. I mean, you came here and you found your way around your own way. There was no assistance.
Come over to the sunny side now. Australia, a great place for families.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I want you to do some pointing. Are you ready? Point to the door. I am pointing to the door. The ceiling. I am pointing to the ceiling.
That wall.
I'm going to that wall.
This wall.
I'm going to this wall.
Point to the stone.
I'm pointing to the stone.
Good. Bronya, stand near the table.
I'm standing near the table.
She is standing near the table. Put the hat on.
I'm putting the hat on.
She is putting the hat on. Take the hat off.
I'm taking the hat off.
She is taking the hat off. Thanks, Bronya.
This young man is lost because he cannot speak English. A simple thing like shopping can be embarrassing when the language is strange. In the end, you have to rely on your child to talk for you. Because you haven't learned English, you can't understand the foreman's instructions. You try to understand because if the foreman loses his temper, well, anything might happen. When settlers know English, they work better, make friends more easily. That is why the Department of Immigration, working with Commonwealth and state education authorities, encourages settlers with free English lessons. For some 20,000 settlers learning English this year, every week is Education Week.
They kept us there for nearly 3 months with 5 shillings per week. And after 2.5 months, we had enough, because at that time, 4 young persons hanged themselves. One of them was a friend of mine in the same block. We started this march, and like I said, the intention was to have a peaceful march. And the secretary of the employment office come halfway and stop us, tell us, not to be silly, not to do anything, because we will get a job pretty soon. And, try to decide all the story. And the people got very infuriated. And they started burning the place down. And of course, we were 10,000 of us, young men with sticks, bare hand, whatever we want. We really had enough of the whole place. And within 10 minutes, there were 4 tanks from a Bandiana military camp arrived, and over 200 soldiers with their bayonet and the full alert, military alert, with the rifle and bayonet just ready for combat. Well, we only had the bare hand. We had no intention whatsoever to fight anybody.